defibrillators, and emergency airway supplies. It wasn't perfect cover, but the thick metal frame would deflect a hollow .9mm round. "Liam, stay perfectly flat," Cameron commanded. Her voice was no longer the soft, raspy alto of the maternal night nurse. It was the sharp, booming baritone of a sergeant first class orchestrating a battlefield maneuver. It carried an absolute, unquestionable authority that cut straight through the deafening ringing in Liam's ears. Gavin kept firing blindly, emptying the magazine into the hallway. Bullets chewed up the ceiling tiles and shattered the fluorescent light fixtures, plunging the corridor into strobing darkness as emergency backup lights flickered to life, casting eerie blood-red shadows across the floor. He's panic firing. He's not tracking targets. He's just trying to create space. Cameron analyzed rapidly, her back pressed hard against the steel cart. She counted the deafening cracks. 7, 8, 9, 10. A standard cheap 9mm usually held 10 to 15 rounds. She couldn't risk waiting for him to empty the magazine entirely. A stray bullet was mathematically bound to strike Liam eventually. She needed a diversion, and she needed to close the distance immediately. Cameron's eyes darted across the supplies strapped to the crash cart. Her gaze locked onto a large red heavy-duty chemical fire extinguisher mounted in a recessed wall bracket just 2 feet to her right. Remaining in a low crouch, ignoring the burning ache in her scarred femur, Cameron reached out and yanked the heavy extinguisher from its mounting. She quickly pulled the metal safety pin, the tiny clink completely masked by Gavin's continued erratic gunfire. "Stay away, I'll kill you. I swear to God, I'll kill you both." Gavin screamed hysterically, waving the gun violently through the air. Cameron took a deep breath, visualizing the layout of the room. She aggressively hurled the heavy red canister out from behind the cart, sliding it forcefully across the smooth linoleum floor directly toward Gavin's position. The movement instantly caught the addict's hyper-vigilant attention. Mistaking the sliding red cylinder for a threat or a rolling explosive, Gavin panicked entirely. He swung the 9mm downward and fired 3 rapid shots at the moving target. The final bullet struck the pressurized canister dead center. The extinguisher catastrophically ruptured with a massive concussive hiss. A dense, blinding cloud of thick white monoammonium phosphate powder violently exploded outward, instantly filling the reception area in an impenetrable, choking blizzard. Gavin choked, stumbling backward as the harsh chemical powder flooded his eyes and throat, blinding him completely. Now, Cameron moved. She didn't charge straight through the cloud. That would be a tactical error. Instead, she bolted silently to her left, diving through the open doorway of the adjacent X-ray observation room. She navigated the dark, familiar room purely by memory, slipping out the secondary door that opened directly behind the reception desk, outflanking the blinded gunman entirely. Gavin was coughing violently, frantically rubbing his burning eyes with his left hand, while wildly waving the empty 9mm in his right. He was completely disoriented, stumbling backward through the thick white smoke. "Wyatt, get up, we gotta go." Gavin hacked his boots, slipping on the powder-coated floor. He took one blind step too far backward. His heel caught the heavy steel leg of an overturned IV pole. Gavin lost his balance completely. He tipped backward, flailing his arms in a desperate attempt to stay upright. As he fell, his finger convulsed one final time on the trigger of the 9mm. A single final deafening crack echoed through the room. It was a negligent discharge, the direct result of terrible weapon discipline and blind panic. But the bullet didn't hit Cameron. It didn't hit Liam. Gavin hit the floor hard, a sharp, horrific scream ripping from his throat. The cheap firearm clattered uselessly away into the white mist. Cameron emerged from the shadows like a ghost closing the distance in 3 massive strides. She kicked the handgun under a row of waiting room chairs, securing the weapon. She quickly grabbed Gavin by his soaked collar, fully prepared to physically restrain him. But as the chemical dust slowly began to settle under the red emergency lights, Cameron looked down and realized the fight was already completely over. Gavin lay thrashing on the floor, clutching his upper left thigh. A dark, terrifyingly wet stain was spreading across his faded denim jeans with sickening speed. The negligent discharge had gone straight through his own leg at point-blank range. Cameron didn't need to examine the wound closely to recognize the severity. The blood wasn't just oozing, it was violently pulsing. Bright, highly oxygenated arterial blood was jetting forcefully from the exit wound with every rapid, panicked beat of Gavin's racing heart. Femoral artery. In a civilian, this injury meant death in approximately 3 to 4 minutes. On the battlefield, it was a race against a ticking clock that Cameron had run 100 times before. The combat medic, who had just ruthlessly dismantled 2 armed robbers, vanished instantly. In her place, the seasoned, dedicated trauma nurse returned. The transition was seamless, a testament to an oath she had sworn long before she ever picked up a weapon. First, do no harm. Second, save the life in front of you. Liam, Cameron roared, her voice echoing through the clinic. Get out from under the desk, call 911. Tell them we have a code red gunshot wound to the femoral artery. Massive hemorrhaging. I need paramedics and police now. Liam, shaking uncontrollably, crawled out from under the shattered desk, his face pale and covered in fine glass dust. Cameron. What happened? Do it now, Liam, move, she ordered, dropping to her knees directly into the pooling blood beside the thrashing, screaming robber. I'm dying! Oh God, it burns! I'm dying! Gavin shrieked, his hands weakly clawing at his leg, completely useless against the massive arterial pressure. Look at me, Cameron commanded, sharply grabbing his chin with her blood-slicked hand and forcing him to meet her steely gaze. You are not going to die today. I won't allow it. But you need to stop thrashing, or you will bleed out before the ambulance clears the intersection. Do you understand me? Gavin nodded weakly, his lips already turning a faint cyanotic blue from rapid blood loss. Cameron didn't have time to run back to the crash cart for a standardized CAT tourniquet. She improvised with terrifying speed. She unclipped the thick, heavy-duty nylon lanyard from around her neck, the one holding her ID badge and access keys. She wrapped the thick nylon strap high and tight around Gavin's upper thigh, just inches below his groin. This is going to hurt worse than the bullet, she warned him coldly. She grabbed the heavy titanium trauma shears from her pocket, slipped one loop of the handle beneath the nylon lanyard, and began to forcefully twist. She used the shears as a makeshift windlass, mechanically cranking the nylon tighter and tighter into the muscle tissue, completely crushing the severed femoral artery against the femur bone. Gavin screamed in absolute agony, a sound that would have haunted a normal person. Cameron merely gritted her teeth, ignoring the burning ache in her own scarred leg, using her entire body weight to hold the improvised tourniquet in place. She watched the wound intently. The violent pulsing jet of bright red blood slowed, sputtered, and finally stopped, replaced by a slow, manageable oozing. Liam, Cameron shouted over her shoulder, her hands locked in a death grip on the bloody shears. Grab the gauze from the triage cart. All of it I need to pack the wound cavity. For the next 10 minutes, the Providence Urgent Care Clinic was perfectly quiet, save for Gavin's shallow, ragged breathing and the distant approaching wail of police sirens. Cameron knelt in a massive pool of the robber's blood, her hands firmly locked, keeping him tethered to the world of the living. Wyatt remained unconscious down the hall. When the Seattle Police Department SWAT team finally breached the shattered front entrance, sweeping the room with assault rifles and blinding tactical flashlights, they completely froze at the surreal scene before them. They expected to find hostages. They expected dead bodies. Instead, they found two incapacitated armed robbers. One was out cold from a blunt force strike. The other was fighting for his life, actively being saved by a 56-year-old nurse with silver hair, a beaded glasses chain, and a uniform soaked to the elbows in blood. Officer Miller, a seasoned veteran of the force, slowly lowered his rifle, staring at Cameron in absolute bewilderment. "Ma'am, did you do this? Are you injured?" Cameron didn't look up from Gavin's pale face. Her grip on the tourniquet never loosened. "I am uninjured, officer. The suspect has a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the left femoral. Tourniquet applied at 0241 hours. He's stabilized but going into hypovolemic shock. I need your medics in here with heavy IV fluids immediately." Miller blinked, entirely thrown off by her precise military-grade medical report. "Yes, ma'am. Medics are right behind us." He looked around the devastated clinic, taking in the shattered glass, the discharged shotgun on the floor, and the unconscious Wyatt. "Ma'am, how did you manage to neutralize two armed men?" Cameron finally looked up. Under the harsh glare of the tactical flashlights, the wrinkles around her eyes seemed to deepen, bearing the heavy weight of a past she could never truly leave behind. "They asked for the heavy stuff," Cameron said softly, her raspy alto returning. She offered the stunned officer a faint, tired smile. "I just gave them exactly what they asked for." Across the room, Liam stood wrapped in a thermal shock blanket, staring at the woman who baked banana bread on Tuesdays. He realized then that he didn't know Cameron Harper at all. But as he watched the paramedics rush in to take over the life-saving efforts, he knew one thing for absolute certain. He was going to pay very, very close attention the next time she gave him advice. Did this incredible story of hidden strength and undeniable courage leave you on the edge of your seat? Cameron Harper's heroic transition from a quiet civilian nurse to an elite combat medic proves that true heroes walk among us every single day. If you loved this thrilling true life tale, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more jaw-dropping stories of ordinary people doing absolutely extraordinary things. Stay safe out there.